Why, hello there, Minnesota Vikings fans. Jacob here. And coming off of what was just a crazy comeback that was absolutely nuts, mental, awesome, and, well, everything above. We now have the home opener of the 2025 NFL season. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. So, yeah, coming off of what was just an absolute roller coaster of a game that ended up with your Minnesota Vikings clawing victory out of the jaws of defeat when it feels like, at least in the past, it was more so the other way. So it's kind of nice to be at the winning end of one of those types of slobber knockers, for lack of a better term. So yeah, Sunday Night Football. The Minnesota Vikings host the Atlanta Falcons in a game that's going to be very interesting, basically, for lack of a better term here, because there's a lot of unknowns between both teams. So yeah, let's go ahead and kind of break down the thoughts and opinions as well as the keys to the game. So yeah, key number one for your Minnesota Vikings offense will be, can J.J. McCarthy build off the momentum of the fourth quarter last week and continue to improve? Because I'm not going to lie, those first three quarters were just all around kind of gross, yucky. I mean, Beeflo's defense, I wish would have done a little bit more in the beginning as far as like pressures and blitzes and stuff like that. Kevin O'Connell never really called an offense that got anyone going really in that first half. And then, of course, the crescendo being a pick six. And then the fourth quarter happened and everything changed for the better. JJ finally got his moxie, got his poise, and he scores 3 touchdowns to basically dagger the Bears at Soldier Field. So now what is the encore? Now what will Kevin O'Connell put on our young rookie? Well, second-year player, I guess, for lack of a better term, because, well, he is technically a second-year player, even though he has one official start underneath his belt. And Thielen didn't have really necessarily a huge impact. He did catch the 2-point conversion. Jets started off a little rusty, but then he came through and scored, JJ's first touchdown in the NFL. Then, of course, J.J. McCarthy threw a dime to Aaron Jones. Will Jordan Mason get some more stuff? It'll be interesting to see just how the Minnesota Vikings offense clicks. So, yeah. And by the way, the Falcons' defense is improving. I mean, they're still not necessarily the greatest defense on the face of the earth, but they do have a couple of young pass rushers, and like James Pierce Jr., he's probably going to be the big guy to keep an eye on. But, yeah, I mean, like I say, that defense is still nothing to sneeze at, per se. So, JJ, just keep on progressing. KOC, don't be afraid to throw a little bit more at him. And also, let's not be afraid to use more Jordan Mason, TJ Hawkinson, and screw it, maybe I'm throwing a little more Jalen Naylor. I mean, Naylor had a pretty solid game, all things considered, himself, too. So, if we can get the depth going here, especially with, injuries starting to pile up, yeah, Ty Chandler's on IR. Blake Cashman is on IR for 4 weeks. And then they elevated Nick Van Nett because supposedly Josh Oliver is also hurt. But yeah. Then, of course, there were a couple of practice squad moves in which I'll be interested to see who gets elevated, this and that. And the other thing, the usual musical chairs that happens. So, but with that all said, the big key on defense for me is Michael Penix Jr. Drake London, maybe. Because apparently he's been dealing with a shoulder injury this week as well. And if he can't go, that is a big piece of their offense that won't be there. Drake London is quietly turning into one of the better receivers in the league that not a lot of people are talking about. And, and then, of course, the old running gag with Kyle Pitts is this going to be the year they finally get it together? Because if Kyle Pitts can live up to his expectations coming out of college, we might be in trouble because, again, Blake Cashman is on IR. Yeah, so the linebacking core against those tight ends could be at a disadvantage here, not going to lie. But it sounds like Eric Wilson will probably be the guy to take over for Cashman. Pace will still kind of be at a rotational role, which I'm more than fine with. We'll just see what basically happens there at the linebacking core because, yeah, we're already starting to deal with injuries. But, yeah, hopefully the corners can get their stuff in a group here. Harrison Smith sounds like he'll be back, so that should help out. But, yeah, and like I say, Michael Penix Jr., believe it or not, I think this is only like his 5th game played as well. So, I mean, he's not a, seasoned vet by any means either. So, Van Ginkel, who's in concussion protocol, that kind of scares me a little bit. Hopefully he's all right. Grenard. So, Dallas Turner, you might have to step up and be more of that pass rushing role in which we drafted you for. So, yeah, it might be an all hands on deck this week, especially with these injuries starting to pile up and coming off of a kind of short week, if you may say, because, going from Monday night to Sunday night, you have one less day of preparation. Thankfully, it's at home. So, yeah, I mean, just basically trying to keep Michael Penix Jr. off balance. Don't let Drake London or Kyle Pitts or don't let anyone just absolutely, smoke you like a sausage and go like 10 for $150 and like 3 touchdowns. You know what I mean? Because the secondary kind of scares me a little bit there with that aspect. They did not have a great week last week, but again, not really a whole lot of us did, so I think as we continue to progress here, everything is just going to get more and more fine-tuned, tweaked, blah, 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 blah. And then lastly, the special teams. Both special teams units, much maligned, but more so the Falcons, because young Wei Koo, oh, mama, didn't realize he's taking a page out of the Blair Walsh playbook. I mean, ay caramba. That was, he had like 3 opportunities to win the game for the Falcons last week and came up short. So they bring in Parker Romo. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, old JPR, the basically MVP of the Vikings-Jaguars game last year, is on the practice squad and will be battling with young Wei Koo for the kicking job. So that'll be interesting to see. And then flipping it back over to our side of special teams, Reichard looked really good last week, so we'll see how he continues to progress from there. But Ty Chandler, who actually looked pretty decent returning kicks last week, is on IR. Miles Price had a really good day with the punt return. Hopefully he can hang on to the ball and continue to hang on to the ball. And will we actually see the emergence of, just a good return game? Can Ty Felton take over that, kick returner role? Or at least be back there with Miles Price. I believe Miles Price is also back there. And regardless, it's going to be interesting to see how they do the return game, because that could still be a work in progress even going into the month of October. But, yeah, that'll basically kind of conclude this. This is going to be an interesting matchup because the Falcons are coming in at 0-1, and the Vikings are coming in at 1-0. And there's still a lot of raw quarterbacks that, quarterback play, I should say, because Penix hasn't played more than like 5 games, and this will be McCarthy's 2nd game. Both offenses have some weapons to them. Both defenses are young, both defenses have their moments too. And, yeah, like I say, this should be an interesting matchup, especially because, again, the second primetime game in a row. Well, Vikes, let's go ahead and get this done, shall we? Please? And also, real quick, too, I do have to work Sunday night, so I'll probably do a little bit of a, live recap, and then when I get home, probably actually finish my thoughts and opinions, because the Wi-Fi at the house that I work at is not the greatest, and it takes like 2 hours to upload a 2-minute video. So yeah, that basically wraps up this video. So until we meet again, this is Jacob. Have a good one.